Hello, everybody. Welcome to our March 5th meeting for the Commission to investigate racialized harms perpetrated against African American residents and workers. Super excited to be here and to have this space and time to continue our business. We are going to call the meeting to order. Would you mind taking roll?
Yep. William Newman.
Here.
Felicia Lundquist. Present. Garrick Perry.
Oh, wait, here.
Thank you. Jeremy Baker Paquette. Nope. Marissa Elkins.
She's here.
Okay. Marsha Morris.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm talking to the attorney, the city attorney right now, trying to determine if we can properly.
Okay. Usman Power Green.
Here.
Renika Montgomery Temeclo. Sarah Lynn Patterson.
Here.
Rachel Naismith.
Here.
Human Rights Commission vacancy. Okay. Double check.
Marissa, unfortunately, we were unable to hear you speak clearly. So if you wanted to repeat a comment that you were making.
She's on the phone with the attorney.
All right. All right, thanks. So we're going to open the session up to public comments. Are there any public comments from the floor? Ed Olmsted, you're acknowledged.
You have to push the button for it to be green, and then it'll be on.
Okay, good. Good afternoon. My name is Ed Olmsted, and I live in Florence. And I want to encourage all my neighbors across Northampton to be inspired by and support the work of this commission. I believe.
Sorry about that. They can't hear me on the Zoom. They're proceeding.
We can hear you, Marissa. We're just going to mute you because there's some conversation happening now. I'm sorry.
Okay. I believe the work of this commission will benefit all of us. This work is based on values that the vast majority of us in Northampton share. These values include honesty, basing our decisions on the most accurate information available, being responsible for our actions, doing our best to make things right that are wrong, working together to make our community the best it can be, treating each other fairly, and encouraging ourselves and others to develop and share our own knowledge, gifts, and talents. Thank you, commissioners, for making the time and doing the work that will help guide us in finding the best way to mend what needs mending and build a stronger, more united community for all residents and visitors alike. I look forward to listening to your discussions and learning from you tonight and over the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoa. John Berkowitz, you're acknowledged.
Hi, John Berkowitz, 65 Franklin Street in Northampton. I announced at the last meeting about an event that took place in Springfield on February 15th, and I was able to go to it. It was fantastic. The film called The Cost of Inheritance. Professor Power Green was there. Let me look around. I'm not sure if any other counselor. Yes. Thank you. And yes, and a full house. I really recommend to any commission members or anybody in the public to just go online and find The Cost of Inheritance. It's a great film. The panel after it was great. And I'm also happy to say that other members of the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence, which the previous speaker, Ed Olmsted, I know is a part of, a member of, three women attended also, and I just saw they wrote a letter to the editor in the Gazette. And if you missed it, I think it was March 1st or February 29th, very good, about the whole issue of reparations and also expressing their great support for the work of this commission and the possible recommendations that might come out of it. Secondly, I just wanted to mention that the organization Embrace Boston, which has been instrumental in getting that beautiful statue of Dr. King and Mrs. King on the Boston Common, they also have been advocating for reparations in Boston, and there is a reparations commission. And the Embrace Boston just came out with their harms report, which I also recommend. Go online, Embrace Boston Harms Report, and take a look at that. It's very informative and moving. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the public comments. I'd like to move to our meeting agenda, particularly to have a conversation with Marissa Elkins briefly to affirm that this meeting was posted correctly and that it appears also on the calendar site. Marissa, I see that did Marissa leave?
I have her as having left the Zoom.
Somebody wants to enter.
Just a second.
I'm here.
I'm navigating to the calendar right now. From the Agenda Center, I affirm that it is posted, but I'm looking on the calendar right now.
All right, so we just wanted to make sure, per Marissa Elkins' concerns, that our agenda was indeed posted on the City Council website. It is on the calendar at City Council, as well as the agenda. Garrick?
Yes, so I just got off the phone. Marissa is traveling in traffic, so that's why she broke up and got dropped. But she said that after talking with the solicitor that the date and the time of the meeting have to be posted, and it has to be on the front page so that the public does not have to look for the information. I believe that the suggestion from Solicitor Seawold was to reschedule the meeting and then repost it.
So we just confirmed that if anybody goes to the city's website, anybody, and you go look at the calendar, it's literally up there. It's literally there.
Okay.
So I appreciate the guidance, but the calendar shows a meeting. Does everyone see that?
Where are we looking at the city site?
Yeah, you just go to northamptonma.gov. Do you see this calendar? You see this? Commission to investigate?
Yeah.
So I see it under March 5.
Yeah.
I can click it. I can click the calendar. It's up there. If you click the commission, title. It opens to the content of our meeting. So I'm not sure how we aren't able to proceed, because can you see those same things that I can see?
I'm looking now. Sorry about this.
That's okay.
Sarah, also, if you search in the search function, Commission to Investigate, you don't even have to put in racialized harm. The second hit is the agenda for March 5th,
Okay, right.
the first being the initial.
And also, it just bears to be recognized that the agenda was posted on March the 3rd at 4 o'clock. So that's our 48 hours. It's literally listed on the website. We can't hear you, Garrett.
Oh, I'm sorry. Also, it has to be done the 2 business days, so it has to be Friday in order for it to have been. Actually, no, yeah. So you would do Friday and Monday.
Right.
You cannot post during weekends.
I didn't post it myself. I sent the agenda off on Friday afternoon, as I always do, and that's when I posted it. Did it get posted only on March the 3rd?
Yeah, it got edited on March the 3rd. I posted it on the 3rd as well.
All right, so Garrett, you said that the agenda,
Oh, sorry. Just so I don't see it in the. I'm looking to find it on the agenda center, which is normally where all of the meetings are posted, and I'm unable to. Various service. Yes. So the last meeting that is on our agenda on the agenda center, which is where every other agendas are posted. So not only the meeting has to be posted, but the actual agenda. The last one it says is February 6th under Commission to Investigate Racialized Harms. So I'm uncertain why that did not post.
How does
Why
it?
didn't post to the.
is the agenda center different than the city calendar that appears on the main page?
Yes. Yeah, all the agendas are posted there. So if you go to northamptonma.gov/agenda center, you will see all of the agendas for everybody, every board and commission. And unfortunately, it seemed while there is a link on the page, there isn't on the actual committee. There is nothing on the agenda center. The only postings we have were January 2nd meeting, February 6th meeting, and then our 2023, which will also posted to the agenda center. This one is not.
I see it. I'm not signed in or anything, but I see it on the public website. You see it too, Usman?
Yeah, March 5th. I mean, it does say that amended on the 3rd, but I'm looking right, like I can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Yep.
Can you share your screen? I'm looking at 2 different screens, so.
So we were able to find our commission on the agenda center, there seems to be no basis in us not having a meeting today because it appears on the agenda. There are a set of notices for it built into the calendar, and it says it right here. We have a meeting on the 5th. It was on the facility services guy's his schedule too. He had it printed out before 5 o'clock. I came here, and he's the one who told us that our meeting was actually scheduled in the hearing room. So he had a calendar with it on there. I think that there may have been some issue that none of us are certain of, but we have all the documents in place.
Okay. I've exhausted my knowledge. This is outside of my territory. So we're all here.
Where's Marissa?
She is driving. She was going to participate in her car. She is on the way past Boston. She had some stuff to do. So that's why we couldn't hear her before when she was talking while I was breaking up.
All right, we're going to proceed with updates on reparations-related resources. I'm hoping that we can have an extended conversation about the readings and the films that people have been undertaking, because this is really the source of our collective knowledge. I was hoping that those who attended the cost of inheritance could give us a summary overview, like a particularly descriptive overview of the objectives of the film, apart from opinion, and then maybe some responses to the film. Would you like to do that, Rachel? Thank you.
Sure, this is Rachel. So I may not remember everything because I'm not really prepared for this, but it was a very interesting film, and it is publicly available. And the main people in it there was an African-American woman and a white woman. The white woman was descended from slaveholders, and the African-American woman was descended from the enslaved people that were enslaved by the white woman's family. So they were linked because if I'm making any mistakes, somebody correct me. And so they got together, and it was a real mission to try to find out a lot about their families, to have meetings where the families got together, made apologies, talked about the future, and all around these two people, there was discussion in the film about the different ways that people do reparations and the different methods and the different reasons to do it. And this is all I remember. But there was a wonderful, wonderful panel right afterwards that was really very exciting. I think we were all on the edges of our seats listening to people very knowledgeable, including the woman who came and talked to us from Amherst, whose name I can't remember. Yeah. And anyway, I thought it was a fantastic evening, and I was glad to see such a diverse audience.
Thank you.
I could pick up there, just talk more the impact of the film as opposed to the content of it. So what was, having watched many of these films, what was unique, at least as far as I could see, was the emphasis was on individuals, and in this case, white individuals who believed wholeheartedly that they should work in collaboration with black individuals in order to help them on a more personal level and family level dig into their past and to think about the possible impact when individuals actually take on the task of saying, you know what, believe in reparations, and I'm going to take my time, my resources to find the families, find the communities that have suffered harm, and to attempt to try to make that right. And the efforts to make it right in terms of reparations were pretty extensive and demonstrated sort of a higher level of personal involvement and connection that I've seen. And so I walked out of the film feeling very optimistic that, sort of those white people who see that they have a stake in this I think will watch the film and be like, wow, I thought maybe I couldn't do anything, or there's a black issue or whatever. I think we'll walk away from seeing that film and say like, wow, there's something I can and should do. So I was very inspired by that. And yeah, the panel, with the people from the film were actually there. Two of the main people, one was on Zoom, one was there. And that was extraordinary to hear them talk about their continued relationship and the touring they're doing to really get the film out there to audiences and to take their story with them. So certainly inspiring. Yeah, it seems like it makes you feel like you're a part of a bigger movement towards getting people to really take it seriously watching that film, as opposed to, in my case, listening into Boston, for example, and, their hearings that are similar to this one. The film brought it right down. So, yeah, Bill, what's your thoughts? You were there, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I've seen it
Bill,
twice.
can you
Press-
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've seen the film twice now. I think it's extremely moving, and I think it shows the value of talking and how people's perspectives change. And I think that if there was one phrase that stayed with me, it was the statement by one of the women who is a descendant of enslaved people, and said, "Nothing about us without us."
Yeah.
And I think that brought me back to the discussion we were having about do we want to have and what will be public hearings. Not so much, let me just note, because the last thing I want to do is have people feel uncomfortable, and I don't think there's anyone on this commission who needs to learn that descendants of enslaved persons here in Northampton have been subject to racism. I think that's a given. But I do think that it's really important for this commission to hear from persons who are descendants or have relatives who are descendants of slaves, and for those descendants of enslaved persons to talk to us, because otherwise there's no validity to what we ultimately recommend.
Can I just add one more comment? Sure. I just want just one more comment to say, just in that regards, is I actually think that films like this are the site for conversations, as you described. So I do think that the film in of itself is valuable because it, like any artwork or provides a site for people to really have a moment watching it either direction, right? Maybe a person who's a descendant of a slave person might not have talked until they saw the film, and then saw the film and thought, wow, some people around here, in this space are willing to take this more seriously than I thought previously. Because I certainly came away feeling that way. I came away feeling like, wow, maybe there are people more interested than I thought who are actually really interested in taking this more seriously. So I agree with you, and I think that, definitely this as a resource to bring out to the community, because people want folk who can facilitate conversations. I mean, it's one thing to have a show film, and it's another to have commissioners or others after the film facilitate a conversation and give people an opportunity to share their views of the film, and then think critically about how what's happening in the film, might impact them and might make them want to think differently. So I just wanted to second that and say that this particular resource, reports are reports. How many people are going to read the Amherst report? How many people are going to read those things? They have value, and I think people will do it, so you promote it. But in terms of bringing community together, I think the documentary film has the ability to do that. So I just want to make sure that I support that, support what you're saying, and also I actually see it as, it encouraged me more to have that sort of outreach, that type of conversation and discourse.
Thanks. The lights, never mind. All right, thanks. Oh, perfect, thank you. We got more lights. It was pretty dim. Well, just a second. Are there any other speakers in the guest room or in the room on Zoom who would like to speak to the movie commentary and film? We're going to open a second discussion at the end of the meeting where the floor will be open to any and everyone who wishes to speak, but for the primary basis of the meeting, our commentary will be reserved for commissioners. Are there any other comments on reparations-related content that has been relevant to our discussions?
I'm sorry, Sarah, could you say that again, please?
Any other comments on reparations readings? I know you had another reading that you mentioned, Bill.
Can I just make one other comment on the movie?
Sure,
If
yeah.
I might. I think the movie does one other thing, and I think we should think about the movie as a resource to be shown around Northampton, because I still believe that it is important, with whatever the recommendations of this commission are, that we have buy-in. We're not going to get buy-in from the whole community, but we want buy-in from a substantial part of the community. And it's a community that is disproportionately white. And that has its own special set of challenges, I think. What this movie does is shows the direct connection between the wealth of this white family and the impoverishment and the economic disadvantage of the descendants of enslaved people. It makes that really clear. And it is a very small step from that example to how wealth in the North is achieved through exploitation of black people and descendants of slaves in the South. And that is something that we really do want to teach people. It will be, I think, an awakening for a lot of people. And this movie allows that conversation. There is wealth here because of slavery. And I think that that is an important lesson.
Thank you. Any other comments on reparations-related content?
Well, just to add to what Bill said, I mean, I mentioned this last time, but, you know, those folk at the Ruggles Center are actually actively engaged in doing exactly what you said. So, I mean, there are entities in the community that are actively seeking to understand people who were enslavers from the South who lived in Northampton, gained their wealth in Northampton, and of course are a part of the civic life of Northampton in terms of property investments, et cetera. So certainly I agree with you, and I think that the entities, whether it's the religious institutions, et cetera, the film shows them a pathway, a concrete examples of one way to sort of do that. I think that's another piece that should be mentioned to those who haven't seen the film, is that this isn't just a film like theoretical. This film is about concrete, this is what you do, right? So in other words, the two primary people, white women who were primarily on it, they show you through the film what they have actually done. And I think that that's inspiring, and I think that it takes it from just research to practice. So I just want to make sure people realize that.
Yeah, I think that part of what this film is doing is helping to energize people and to move from like a sort of a national engagement with the idea of reparations, which is largely abstract in that sense, where people haven't had expansive opportunities to ask the question on a local level as we have been empowered to do. And I think that makes what we do in this group pretty special. I think that our goal is to move this excitement from the national scale and from examples that happen by different documentarians, to our local focus. One of the conversations we had earlier about the list of enslaved people here is the fact that first church records were the place where we found a lot of those slaves, which meant the Protestant church was culpable, but also able to shield a lot of information that we have about slavery. So part of what we have to do is figure out, how do we find those communities again? That's our goal. How do we find our communities? How do we come up with frameworks of valuation that meet the muster of both historians and public policy specialists today? We have to do that. And we have to come up with good ideas that people around here are going to get behind. And I think one of the first steps is, of course, showing the film. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how UMass Poll has produced some results that are very useful for our process and our project. I recommend that folks give those statistics a look over this next month. We will have our mayor and our city council president, Alex Jarrett, visiting us next month for our April meeting, and it's super exciting that they're going to be joining us. And a part of what we have to do as commissioners is come up with a viable plan and the evidence that Ed Olmsted called for to request that there are some real concrete policies and programs created as initiatives to repair this historic damage. We do want to do that, and so we have to come up with information. And so part of what we're doing is having an argument with the public at large about something that's really unique and intimate to us. If you take a look at those polls that I showed, the 2020 poll showed that on questions of racial privilege, Black Lives Matter, and critical race theory, the vast majority of white people did agree that they have racial advantage because of their skin color. 61% agreed with that. 54% of white folks had a positive view of the Black Lives Matter movement, and 47% of folks supported renaming public spaces that are named after individuals who were slaveholders or slave owners. That poll also included a review of our Massachusetts state flag, which has the image of a colonial man's arm with a sword up above a native person. But 45% of respondents opposed replacing the seal. And then 71% of respondents supported allowing people convicted of felonies to vote after serving sentences. And one thing that 2020 poll will show us is that a lot of people have basic understandings of racism that they agree on, basic understandings of injustice that they agree on. But when it comes to making local level or state level changes to our actual material culture, that's when they're less likely to get behind it. So the goal of a local commission like ours is to convince people here in this town that our actual material changes to culture are worthwhile and are supported with evidence. The second poll that I shared was the 2021 UMass poll, and there was a poll overlooking President Biden's first 100 days in office. And it allowed people to talk about why they disagree with reparations, why they support reparations, and what kind of reparations that they would be okay with. Most men and women, 50% of men and women agreed that reparations should not be given to African Americans. Most men and women believed that African Americans were not deserving of reparations. Most people who responded make below $40,000 is the largest threshold, and then other people who disagreed made under $100,000. However, 57% of respondents between ages 18 and 29, so relatively young people, actually agree with reparations. So for those who supported reparations, they do so for a great variety of reasons, which is different from people who oppose reparations, who mostly oppose them on the basis of Black people not deserving them. That's kind of their main reason. So for people who agree with reparations, most of them, 27%, agree that it's on the basis of slavery that they deserve reparations. 23% believe that it's because of ongoing pain because of racism. And then the next group wants to help Black people achieve equality. And there are other sort of responses they could have given, but this shows us that the vast majority of people who are willing to get behind slavery have to be recruited because they are part of the youth vote. And then also most people agree that slavery is the major area, and so that probably should be where we focus our attention to understanding how we can create policies and programs that have emerged out of that. I think it's also worthwhile to recognize the different types of plans that people have thought about with reparations, and they come in four major groups. That's cash payments, apologies for slavery, the third is free college tuition, and the fourth is housing assistance. And of all of those, only apologies for slavery reached significant numbers for encouragement. There were low 40s for some respondents who believed that there should be some payments, but the vast majority of every single group agreed that there should not be reparations. So this is not a sort of conversation that automatically presents itself as a foregone conclusion. We have to create a really good plan, and we have to figure out how to make the plan specific to Northampton. It's exciting to talk about national phenoms, and they can and they should encourage our process, but we have to remember we have a report due in August, our preliminary report. I do agree that we should think about asking for more time, but I think that the more time should come after our preliminary report so that we can hear from our government officials and we can hear from the community. I like the idea of reparations, which a lot of people might say, but like, I want to know more about this, or if there was more information about this particular thing, perhaps I could be more encouraged. Or it could also do the work of saying, I had no idea this much systemic racism was afoot here, in ways that we can just track according to employment, unemployment, income, rates of availability of housing to certain people in certain, and we can trace systemic issues here by way of how a lot of other communities can do the same. So yeah, just the encouragement here is to focus on our local situation and allow national stuff to inform our work. But any responses to the ways in which people are responding to the question of reparations? Felicia?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Patterson, for sharing those documents and results from that survey. I just want to second, like, what I hear from this is, and then the research, is that there's a lot of biased beliefs and people's actions don't maybe align with that because they may not have an understanding of the bias that's happening. And so, like, I think about, our subcommittees and events and education as one of them. And I think what as someone that has facilitated dialogues, I think it could be really interesting, both, thinking about the film that folks talked about today, but also these surveys that Dr. Patterson has shared in ways that we detect systemic-based oppression and how that plays out, and having a more shared understanding of what that looks like, because I think there's people saying one thing, but then the statistics show something completely different.
Rachel?
Yeah, I just took a look at the statistics, and I find it very interesting. The one thing, as you say, that people agree on is that an apology is the highest, and that's the thing that doesn't cost any money. So I find that kind of interesting. I also saw that 85% of the people in the survey who were African American were in favor of reparations, and I found that very interesting as well.
Just wanted to hop in and point out something that those of us who were, I don't know, this might have been a closed event, but sometimes you look at those numbers and they still seem low, but where they were 20 years ago, they're actually higher. And so, like, having a long historic arc to momentum around reparations, I think, is really important, because we can get caught up and say, oh, well, we still haven't reached that 50-50 or 51% people supporting it if we look at these different numbers. But when you look at a 20-year arc, you really see the momentum pass it through. Second thing I want to say is that I do think that it's important that our committees, once we get going and sort of to actually find information, that we don't, sort of neglect how much education needs to be done just on the work around slavery that Historic Northampton's done. I keep bringing it up, but when you go to the website, you see how much work they did. People who are responding to the polls, if we were to do one similar in Northampton, they need to actually get the content to see the impact. Otherwise, it's completely abstract. Like, they're not even aware, perhaps, that there was even enslavement, so they don't even understand it. So, I really want to reiterate that any, sort of outreach or work we do in the community, much of it will be taking the content that's been created already, the new content that people are working on, and putting together a comprehensive educational package to then, once that happens, then the data that's collected, I think, might reflect more of what this particular place actually thinks about it. Do you know what I mean? While I respect, obviously, Professor Netta's work and the polling that's been done with 1,000 people and all that stuff, so.
Any commissioners have comments?
Commissioners will get back.
Can I make a comment, if I might? I think this is a really important conversation. I also should have known, I did hear from Councilor Elkins, who does have concerns and reiterates what Attorney Seawald said about this meeting. And my concern at this point, I don't know the answer to what is supposed to be posted where or how. I mean, I know what the law says. I don't know the practicalities of this on the city's website, but I am concerned that we may have to do all of this over again. So I leave to the co-chairs to make the decision and the call, but I just want you to know that I don't know the answer. I am concerned that we're just going to have to do it over again. If you think we're good, we'll press on, but apparently Attorney Seawald has real concerns about whether this meeting is properly posted, because as I understand the concern, the agenda was supposed to be in the same place that the meeting announcement is on the city website. So I don't know the answer, but I just want you to know that that's a concern.
Yeah, I see a message from Marissa Elkins where she expressed that concern, and at the beginning of the meeting, we went through a check down. We located the meeting post on our calendar, which is on the web page of northamptonma.org, .gov. It's on the front page of it. So we have that. And then there's an agenda center that Garrick, Councilor Perry told us about. We went and checked that, and our agenda for March 5th was posted. We went and checked the page, and the agenda was posted. The thing that the one person who can attest to is now not here because she's sick, was when she posted it, right? So I sent off the agenda on Friday, as I do every single week before. And so I don't personally upload any content to the city's web pages. So I literally can only tell you what we see that's visible to us. And the one person who can tell you exactly when she uploaded things is not here anymore. She said that she did. She said she did, so.
Okay.
Excuse me, I tried to ask this question earlier and got shut down. My understanding, if I understood her correctly, was that it's supposed to be posted full day Friday, full day Monday, for the full day of 48 hours. That's what I thought she was raising, along with where it was posted. And I tried to ask that question when she was, and then we lost her. So I think that was what she was raising. Was it posted on Friday, meaning it didn't have the full 48 hours? And that's what I was asking.
That's not the case. Full 48 hours includes the day of, so it needs to be posted by the end of the day on Friday, so that there's a full business day.
So that actually she's not correct about that.
Right,
Okay.
so it can be.
I just wanted to know.
Yes, it can be posted before the end of the business day on Friday.
Yeah, the problem, as I understand it, is that the law says that the place where it's posted is supposed to be, the information where it's posted is supposed to be in a single place where the meetings, the time, the date, and the topics are all listed in one place. And what this does is make a person who is looking for this meeting have to go to a second place to see, second location, to see what the topics are. That's what my understanding, and I understand it's a level of detail that at the end of the day, no one may care about, but if someone wants to object to the process of this commission, I also don't want to give a invitation on a silver platter to do that. So I think this is Councilor Elkins' concern as well. She thinks it all has to be in one place, and the place where it should have been is where the time and place of the meeting is, and you shouldn't need to go to a second place on the city website to get the information about the agenda. And this is a level of detail that makes me a little nutty, but I think that's what the objection is. And there seems to be some merit to it.
So I once again repeat that there's an agenda center. It's northamptonma.gov agenda center. This is where all the agendas for all of the commissions are held, all right? All of the agendas for all the commissions. When you come to our commission,
Yes.
there is an agenda posted for March the 5th, which is today.
My question was, what is different about the way this got posted than the other times we've gotten posted? I didn't get the agenda from you guys until today, which is unusual. You usually get it before today. So what is different?
So the difference between now and our September through November meetings is that September through November, Laura posted our agendas. I sent her the information, she posted the information. The only difference is that we have an administrative assistant, and now I send the administrative assistant our information, and she posts that. I do not physically post, nor have I ever physically posted anything to the website. I literally have always sent these documents by the time I was supposed to send them to the administrative assistant who was responsible then for posting it. So I am not at fault for this. Sorry.
Hi. Well, I think whatever they think we did wrong, we should do it right next time. But I think if there's a chance that this meeting is going to be negated in any way, I wonder if we could reschedule it for next week at the same time and adjourn.
Just to be clear, and I do see your hand, but is that the literal mechanism, the digital mechanism that takes something you send and submit and makes it do all that magic on the computer? There's no one here who understands nor is responsible for that. And so if the process was followed identically than previous times, anyone who challenges this can't see any subterfuge, because there's so many layers in which my co-chair went through by the deadline to make it happen. So let's just say we do have an agenda and our goal is to, prevent people from coming to the meeting. You would have to prove that by demonstrating that we did something different. But my co-chair did the exact same thing, and the administrative assistant did the exact same thing. So there is no subterfuge. There may be a I'm not suggesting I'm just saying that there's no, the mechanism, the digital mechanism responsible for all this would be the person to speak to who posts it. You know what I'm saying? How will we even know for next time?
I'm sorry, if I could just, I have no doubt that everyone is acting in the best of good faith. I have no doubt that everyone tried to do their best and to comply with the law and thought that the agenda was posted. My concern is whether we have to do the meeting over again, and we want to comply with the law in all its infinite technicalities. And people who know this way better than I seem to think there's an issue. And by that I mean the city solicitor and Councilor Elkins and Councilor Perry, as well as all of you. And it strikes me that those concerns are grounded in some reality, because this posting of the agenda is on our commission's page, not on the first page where you find the notice of the meeting on the city website. And it gets, okay, but if you're
Here, March the 5th, that's today, and that's our name. It's literally on, this is our homepage. Scroll down. Here's our agenda, our time, the date. Now, what someone might argue from this second window, where it is here, it is posted.
I guess my question is this a good use of our time going back and forth like this? If we're getting from the attorney that this is not the way it's supposed to be, and that counselors who know how to do these things are objecting and saying, hey, guys, we think we did something wrong here. I know I didn't get the agenda the way I normally do. I had to call Rachel to even get it. So something is snafu here. So I don't know what that is, but why keep arguing back and forth about it?
I don't know, if I could just say, I don't know the answer to this, okay? My technology skills are sufficiently limited. I just don't know the answer to this. And I think it is absolutely clear that anyone who wanted to know what the agenda was for this commission tonight could find it. So the intent of the law clearly was fulfilled. That said, I don't want to give someone who was out to undermine our work some basis to do it. That's all. And I don't know the answer. And if you're satisfied and you say we did it, let's press on. And if there's an issue, then let's reschedule it. That's my view. And I do not know the answer.
Felicia?
I just think that we're here, we need to move forward, and I think people are heard. Dr. Patterson has repeated herself several times, and I think we just need to move forward. We're already in the room, and unfortunately, if this doesn't work out, then we reset and figure out what the next steps are, but we are here, and I think that we're wasting a lot of time, to be very honest, in a respectful manner.
So we were told by Marissa that we needed to post in the message she sent to me, the agenda must be on the calendar site with the date and time. And then on the calendar, if you click on it on the front page, you see March 5th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. City Hall hearing room. So for whatever reason, we were routed to the City Hall hearing room instead of this chambers. If you guys remember from September, October, we once did a switcheroo. We moved from one hall to another, and no one seemed to think that we should cancel our meeting because of that. But I am willing to do a roll call vote so that we can determine whether or not we want to move on or hold our meeting. And because Madden has left, I will call the vote. So if you believe that we should continue proceedings for today, please say yes. If you think that we should end proceedings immediately, please say no. William Newman?
I say no.
Excuse me, is there a second to my motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I second.
All right. William Newman, should we have this or not?
No.
Felicia Lundquist?
Yes.
Garrick Perry?
Yes. Yes.
Jeremy Baker Paquette?
Yes.
Marissa Elkins isn't here. Marsha Morris?
No.
Okay. Usman Power Green?
I say yes.
Renika Montgomery Timoclo is not here. And me, I say yes. Rachel Naismith?
Reluctantly, I say no.
The 5 yeses wins it. We will proceed with our meeting. Great. So part of our next topic is just to talk about the challenges associated with reparations projects. What do you think will be a challenge that we have to overcome here in this city with connecting people to this question, and how can we encourage people to get involved? Felicia?
I think positions of power and authority and agency is going to be a challenge, and I think that it's demonstrated in just our meetings at times. So I think that that will be challenging, where people may or may not have an understanding of their position now and how that plays out, again, thinking about the ways in which they move through the world and through this commission and the topics at hand.
I think a challenge will be people taking their time to do the labor. I mean, if you have any amount of tasks to do any given job, you know, and you are being asked now to do something that's not within the purview of your specific role you're hired for, people have a choice to either do it or not, you know, and I think that a major challenge will be to help people understand that even though if it's taking time from what they would be doing to do this, particularly if they're in a city role or professional role, that it's worth it. You know, it's worth taking their time and knowing that maybe they need to do whatever they would have done at home, maybe, for example, because at work, they need to be looking up information to work with the commission. So I think that's a major barrier that is going to require us to help compel people to really think that they should be taking their time to do it. Because many of us have been asked for many things, particularly if you're in a role that gathers that. People ask you stuff all the time. And now suddenly a commission's coming to ask you to go do more time and look for something for the commission. I think that there's a percentage of people that it's going to be difficult to, it's going to be a challenge, not difficult. It's just going to be a challenge. And I think we're going to have to, you know, persuade them that it's worth their time.
I agree. One of the initiatives that I'm super excited to try to put some energy behind is sending out just short, very friendly letters to some of the area scholars asking that they can produce research for us that might be useful, and we can outline some of those areas. And one of the examples I wanted to give was that of minority-owned business statistics, which our Census Bureau does collect. Now, because such a great wealth of information is being collected by the Census Bureau, there are numerical codes used to articulate different points of information. So what gets produced are these sheets of codes. And unless you are in a very specific field where you've been taught how to decode and bring it back into narrative form with like actual totals and people and such, then you're not going to be able to find it, right? So for the very reasons why data has been converted into numerical forms to make it easier for people to track a lot of information, it makes it harder for everyday people like us to get access. So part of this work does ask us to, for example, send out some emails to some area professors that do work on businesses and say, hey, would you mind just doing sending a return to us on the values associated with business ownership in the 2020s? Can you do that, right? And if you don't want to, that's fine, but would you mind doing that for us? And this is the kind of work that I think gets around questions of any sort of racial antagonism. Like, you know, just asking questions about how many businesses have been owned in this area is not something that should offend.
Just changing them all.
But by getting those results, you can start to tell a story about opportunity and the theft of opportunity that's resonant in areas where slavery has been. Like, that's a natural byproduct. And what we have to do is just show those values of how we can prove that.
Yeah, everything everybody said, I agree with. I think that we need to start gathering this information, or at least asking these key people to start, because as soon as we start getting that kind of information, we'll be prepared to have communications with the public that we really need to have. I think there are a lot of people in the public, they're reading letters about the program in Springfield, they're reading about Amherst, and there hasn't been that much information coming out about this commission. And, you know, we still are in the initial stages of this, but I'll be glad when we can sink our teeth into it, and then we're going to be able to have a product that can work for the August report and can work for being able to let people know what we're doing.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get some parts of the process, parts of our report shared with the larger group. Like, I'm happy to start circulating a report of sort of some of our structural harms. I hope that for next meeting, people will bring a list or return to our master list of research inquiries to figure out what questions you might like to take the lead on. I mentioned some low-hanging fruit. A part of our justification for asking for resources for reparatory action can be shown by the amount of interest this area has shown. Now, I think this is going to be as libertarian as I'll ever sound on any given day. But for a lot of people who support reparations, they don't need to see the data that a court would want to see, because they understand that thefts of opportunity and well-being that have been derived from the system of slavery have been facilitated by criminal acts, right? Of negligence, of not keeping up with records, not maintaining records, not giving proof to injustice, right? That's a part of criminality. It's like you don't make it easy to know what the criminal has done. So a part of the people who agree with reparations don't need to see a whole bunch of like, how many black people here were like, you know, had their exact house stolen for how much exact amount of money. Some people want to know that there's a declarative agreement in a community that we can still do certain types of work for certain types of ethnic groups without also having an expansive statistical record to demonstrate that. And so if somebody could give us a history of those events and activities where we can say, this is a certain type of people, we still want to prove our case. We're not saying we don't want to prove our case, but we still have a group of people who feel like the injustice of slavery also begets criminal negligence of the history of the people who came from slavery, so that it's not easy for us to find this evidence. The point is that it's hard to find the evidence.
And can I add that it's, Maggie, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. I don't speak more. Can I respond to that, Dr. Perry? Yeah. Also, with research, it's skewed because a lot of it wasn't reported, right? People, because of the erasure of black and brown people. And so I think that, if anything, the numbers are higher than what we actually see. And I think that's also something to take into context.
I've had my hand up.
Yep.
Rachel, please. I'm sorry, Marcia.
Listen, folks, I totally get the conversation, and I want to support you two co-chairs to do the best work that's possible for our community. However, I feel like this is take 5 of the same conversations about good things we could look at. And I think all these things are valid. But I do think it's time for us to move to work. And we gotta set up the structures to do that. And we have not totally done that. And so I think, like the conversation you're having right now and that you're talking through, I think is a great conversation to have. And, you know, there's been 3 big conversations that have come up so far. The one about, is this the right, like I wanted to find out if that data, it is reflected in Northampton. Are the people of Northampton equally as reticent to do reparations? The other part, like what you were just saying, I think that is also legitimate to look at that. Could we get data from sources to make things easier? But I don't think we can circumvent a process that includes the community. And so I get it that, you know, as intellectuals, I see your thinking, but I don't think we can circumvent that piece of work. So I just really feel like we've got to move to the part where Rachel and Felicia and everybody keeps saying, yeah, we need to do that. Yeah, we need to do that. I don't know how many times we've said that, but I don't even know if there's a list of what you just said someplace that will come up again.
Well, it's, I think it's pretty certain that the documents that have been circulated exist on city web pages and in your inboxes. I can name at least 4 different people who have contributed actual research and content to our proceedings. I have already mentioned that I'm studying the demographics of the black population from 1790 to 1920. I've already told you that I'm going to geocode our residences of black people from those decades. I've already said that. We already know that Bill Newman and Marissa have been working on racist housing covenants, and Bill Newman actually has a report for us. Renika Tamaclo has been so helpful as to talk to us about the influences of African Ghanaian heritage on the history of slavery report, which we learned that, for example, coffee is probably cuffy and other sorts of adjustments to our understanding. We have a person who specializes in anti-racism training who will be articulating, at least in, I would say, a paragraph or two, Felicia, the importance of anti-racism training and the culture of that in this area, something that we can prove. I just mentioned that there will be a systemic report on harms of unemployment from the contemporary era, as well as other sorts of discrepancies in housing that is openly available via the census. And I just articulated at least 2 other areas that we're going to ask area professors to give us. There is research happening in this commission. We cannot talk as liberally as we want because of the commission framework that requires that we meet with a videoed audience at all time. So I just want to correct this misunderstanding that there isn't research afoot, and there will be a report in August.
I just want to add to the research. I've met with the archivist at Forbes Library to talk about how to approach researching specifically Northampton in regards to slavery, as well as colleagues of mine who are, as I said, at the Ruggles Center doing research on slaveholders in Northampton, which I do intend to, in consultation with these other historians, be a lead author, perhaps, if the committee wants me to be, to write about and to summarize and to bring this stuff into something someone could actually read, beyond just sort of a list, just listing and sorts of things. So that's certainly an area, but I did wonder, and just for the general conversation around challenges, and maybe what was the second part of that you asked? You said challenges. The first question that you asked.
Right. So the question on the table is simply, what are the challenges that beset us in doing reparations research? Moving from the national interest to the local level.
Yes. Okay. I do think that I agree, Marcia, that we do need to perhaps prioritize areas that aren't being covered already. And so if any of you included have a specific area that you feel like people should begin to dig into, I think that I agree with you. Like, let's get going and have more hands on deck researching specific elements. So did you have an area? Because when you say the area, then we could talk about the challenges of researching that area. Does that make sense?
Right. So what I'm saying to you is, without a good structure for how this is going, like you said, you can go into either the papers and I didn't get the notes for the last meeting, just so we didn't approve them and do all that like we normally do. I don't know what's going on, but yes, we can find all these things. These things need to be organized so that as approved, we can digest it and then be able to have a process for the community to then come into the conversation with us. Otherwise, they don't need a committee. You two could have just written the paper. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. There needs to be a community process. There's a need for, I really think we should go back to how San Francisco did this. they really are a model for how to do community research. And I get it as intellectuals, why, I used to have an office actually on Boston University research. I used to do a lot of their data collection, so I know how intellectuals think, but you can't circumvent that piece. It's critical to keep the community moving through these things with you. Otherwise, you will not have their support at the end of the process. So I'll keep saying we need an organization, we need subcommittees, we need to get the voices from the community, and I don't see where that's happening.
Rachel?
I'll let other people respond.
So we've been asked to look over the master list of data points that we have discussed and see whether we would volunteer to do some of the work. So what I would like to ask is if Madden could possibly pull together that and send it out one more time. And then the second thing is I would look at it, I would choose something, and I probably would look at the Amherst report because they went into detail about where they got the information. And that might inform me. And then I want to jump in and do it. I just want to do it.
I just want to remind everybody that it is not uncommon for commissioners to be the recipients of data and not always the author of data. So those who are not creating research-based narratives shouldn't feel like we're not somehow commissioners, because every single person on the commission of every other commission has not done the exact same types of work. So
Jeremy's been there for a while.
Jeremy, you have something to say?
Just to add on to what Morris was saying, I do agree. I do think we need more focused objectives, especially I should have mentioned subcommittees and subgroups. And I feel like at least what I've been hearing is it seems like a lot of people are doing individual research, and we are a committee and we're doing a lot of group research in general. For example, for one area that, for me personally to cover the research would be schools and Northampton High School itself. I have been in communication with the Black Student Union and SOCA and various other active groups there. But yeah, I also think the one good thing also be, I think everyone Maddie should have all of our phone numbers, I think, if I'm correct. So one thing could be we could set up also like a group chat of, via cell phone for communication as well. I think that also would be a good idea.
People have to actually respond to emails because a lot of people say a lot of things in our conversations in Zoom or in person, but don't act on the actual emails that they receive. So I just want to put that out there, is that the more that we call for more conversation, is that it requires everyone to actually respond to emails promptly for us to do things. Jeremy, would you mind taking it on to ask various student groups in Northampton if they wouldn't mind attending one of our meetings and being our guest speakers so they can inform our conversation? And we'd love to have them for June. We'd love to have them for May if you can get them to come.
Yeah. I would love to host at least bring a group to either SOCA or the Black Student Union to come and speak on their ideas of racialized harms in the Northampton School District. Yes.
Okay, so what you're going to do, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. You're going to look at our charge, right? That charge document I sent out way early on. I sent out a whole packet of information. So you're going to look up the charge document and our annotated bibliography. You're going to reprise yourself of that. And then the second thing is you're going to ask them to come to either our May or our June meeting. That means you have to know the date for that Tuesday and our time. And so you're going to get in touch with both of those groups, and then you're going to ask them to both come on both of those days. So could you both come on this day, and if not, can you come on this date? So you're going to try to get both of those groups to come. And then you're going to report out to us in April about how far you've gotten through the planning with them. Can you do that?
Yeah, I think I can do that.
Thank you.
If
So-
I need the help, I could also talk, whatever. But yeah, I do think that's possible. I could most definitely do it.
You may very well email me. I'll check in with you just to make sure in a week that you've started it, okay? So we'd love for you to do that and get some people here so we can have our first listening session.
I just want to bring up a point, Felicia, and I do think we should review, Sarah, the rules for us meeting outside of here, because I'm not sure. So I do, from what I remember, and I could probably look up my notes, if it's over 2 people, we cannot meet, or what was the, I don't remember it, and so I'm wondering if anybody remembers the rules, because I do see the from a practical standpoint, the benefits of me, and people on here meeting to do work, as was suggested in Marcia's email. I see the benefit of that, but I thought the issue, and maybe I'm wrong, was about what we're allowed to do outside of the commissions as sub-commissioners. And so, Sarah or anyone else, anyone remember what the rule was on that?
My understanding is that we can form an executive committee to be able to have meetings that were not on that was to the public if we called for an executive session. That's a typical way in which people operate, and I would be surprised, very surprised, if we can't do that. So I don't know and there's nothing that says that we can't talk to each other. It just says we can't get into detail about different areas. It never said we can't talk to each other. I didn't know where that came from.
I believe we can meet without any problem, anybody, as long as you're not talking about the mechanics and the business of the commission. And if there's a subcommittee, there has to be quorum from that subcommittee, and it has to be recorded, and minutes have to be taken. So that's usually the hardship that comes with subcommittees, is that you have to plan to have it recorded, and you have to take minutes. And anybody is welcome to form a subcommittee. I mean, those documents went out back in October, where I suggested month after month, and no one bit. So, but I think that actually, that brings us to our next agenda item, which is to discuss.
I'll put my hand up for a subcommittee, and I will take on how we communicate to the public, how we're going to get data from them, and how we're going to flow data out. And so I will take that on, and if somebody would be willing to work with me on that, like Jeremy, I'd love to work with you with the student piece. I've had some ideas about how we might collect data from young people, and I sent that out in the email. So I'll be happy to work with you on that.
So what would that, Marcia, what would, tell me the subcommittee that I might volunteer for? So tell me.
That how we communicate to the public.
So it's like okay.
And how the public flows information into us. And Jeremy is is a good example of how we can do that. Like, I don't know if we should, I mean, it might be great to take the information we get from them and have Jeremy and his group communicate it. That might be a great way for us to do a listening session. I wouldn't suggest we do a listening session in our meeting, but I would definitely say we need listening sessions. So I'll definitely take that on. The communication in and out.
So
I'll build that structure.
So Jeremy has an objective. Jeremy wants to invite some Black student groups to our meeting. So we don't have to call it a listening session. That can happen under a different name. But Jeremy has an objective, and that can't be canceled out. He's going to work on that for the next month. So that's still going to happen in addition to whatever else wants to happen. We do want to get actual people of color into our meetings. We don't have to call it a listening session. We don't have to function it that way. But to belabor us getting people into the room for any reason, I'm sorry, so I just want to make sure Jeremy.
I'm all for it. I'm not saying Jeremy shouldn't come with the group. I'm saying we need a structure to do communication, and I'm happy to do that. And Usman, I'd love to work with you on that. And anybody else who's interested, Garrett, if you're interested. Because you do media and you do all that stuff anyway. So, and I'll send you guys an email tomorrow.
That's terrific. I was hoping we can also talk about research areas and upcoming visitors after Felicia's comment.
I think I just want to give pause because I know when I first joined the committee, we had all kinds of conversations in terms of legality and communication-wise, and it seems like I think we need to have maybe a little recap of some of that so that we're all on the same page, because I would really, as we spent half the meeting today talking about do we move forward or not, for something to get sent or to have more than, what I thought was more than 3 people, you know, sort of conversing together, was against sort of the practice. And I would love a refresher in my head just from my own perspective. And so I want to just give pause before we go and announce or make committees or subcommittees or announce we're going to serve as the chair of those or whatever, what have you, to just kind of reconnect with the sort of the guidelines and maybe just get some clarity. For me, I would love more clarity around that.
Great. I can send out the minutes from our very first meeting, which I summarized what Bill Alan Sewall told us, and also I'll send out the document that he sent to us from that first meeting. But Bill?
Yeah, I was going to suggest, why don't we just have either you can do it, Sarah, and send out what you have from those minutes, or have Alan send us a one-page summary of the open meeting law. We can meet. The question is whether you're deliberating with a majority or a quorum of a committee, either the commission as a whole or a committee, in which case then you have to get into all these posting and open meeting law requirements. We can meet outside. We can do work outside. It is absolutely doable, and we can do it consistent with the open meeting law, and we're talking about 3/4 of a page max to get either from our minutes or from Attorney Sewall, and we should just move on. We can work outside here, and if we have to post it, we're going to have a meeting, we can get it posted, and people can meet, and it all will work. We don't have to reinvent the wheel on this.
Marcia?
Oh, I'm sorry, I sent the email just asking for the list that we've been saying we were gonna get with all of our own emails for this particular group and the phone numbers.
Yeah, I requested that those phone numbers be gathered. It just hasn't been done yet. That's a task for our administrative assistant. I'm happy to remind her. All right, so Bill, would you mind describing your work with the Registry of Deeds?
Sure. I learned more about land law than I ever have in the first 45 years I've been practicing, not an area I practice in very often. I spoke with the Register of Probate, the Hampshire County Register of Probate, Mary Olberding, and this was after consulting with Marissa Elkins on how we should go about this. Our original idea was that the Registry of Deeds in Hampshire County has an enormous wealth of information about land transfers in the county going back hundreds and hundreds of years. The good news is that's true. The bad news is it's generally not accessible. And it's not accessible because the land records are only indexed back to 1894, images to 1879, and as a practical matter, you cannot do a word search or a keyword search because the information is not indexed and it is not computerized. However, there is an exception to this. Sort of. When you buy a house, or anyone buys a piece of property, and a lot of people are familiar with this, your lawyer takes the deed and he goes and records it, or she goes and records it at the Registry of Deeds. And that is essentially a recorded deed. I think a lot of people are familiar with that. And that is what I've just described as what is not indexed, is not computerized, is not available. There is, however, in Massachusetts and some other states, I think 11 states in total, another system of land registration. And it is called registered land. It is not often utilized in Massachusetts, although in some communities it is utilized significantly, and it is a different system of land registration because it is essentially recordation of land transfers that go through the land court, and it is a record that is premised on the land parcel itself, not on the buyer or the seller. I didn't make that very clear. But in other words, there's a piece of land, a parcel of land, and it is registered with the state. It's called registered land, and it comes down, instead of having to look through thousands and thousands of records for a given year to try to find something, you have registered land, and you can look at all of the transfers going back till that parcel was first created. Pretty interesting. Now, I can't tell you whether or not registered land in Hampshire County, and specifically in Northampton, is representative of all parcels in Northampton. I don't know that. But from this initial idea, here's this wealth of information, which is not really accessible, to the idea that there is a finite group of parcels of land in Northampton, and we can actually look at them to find out whether there are racially restrictive covenants in that land, and it is a manageable amount of data. That was pretty exciting. And that turns out to be possible, because as opposed to having thousands or tens of thousands of transfers, there are about 200 parcels of registered land in Northampton. That is manageable. Now, I did ask Registrar Oberding whether she had come across racially restrictive covenants in Northampton. There is one such parcel that is noted in the charge to this commission from the Northampton City Council, which, as Tom points out, was in the original report to the City Council. That said, what Mary Oberding told me is that she has seen restrictive covenants that precluded purchase by persons of Polish descent, people who are alcoholics, and some other restrictive covenants as well. But that was basically not in the not in the registered system, which we're going to look at, but just as she's seen them over the years in the recorded system. So what I asked, I hope I wasn't out of turn here, was, is this inspection of the 200 parcels of registered land possible? And she volunteered to do that. And I thought we should not look a gift horse in the mouth, and I said, what a wonderful idea if you could volunteer and your staff could help do that. And she said she will. The Hampshire Registry, the Hampshire County Registry of Deeds, goes back to 1640. I don't know what we're going to find in the registered land documents, but this is going to be somewhat interesting. There are different pieces of information I can give you about what registered land guarantees and what it's supposed to do. I don't think that that's really necessary or germane to our inquiry, which is, are there racially restrictive covenants in deeds in Hampshire County? And we will at least be able to look at a slice of them. I speculated whether we might find lawyers who used racially restrictive covenants, or whether there were periods of time where they were used in numbers that we can identify, or parcels that we can identify, or parts of town we can identify. I don't know the answers to any of that, but I think that Registrar Oberding is going to help us, and I'm going to check with her soon to see what her initial view of this is, what kind of time it would take, and when we could have the information.
And that's our local Register of Deeds?
The Register of Deeds are by county. This is the Hampshire County Register of Deeds. I am aware of racially restrictive covenants out of the Hampshire County Register of Deeds, Registry of Deeds, for example, in South Hadley. What I've asked Mary Oberding is, can we do this for Northampton and see what the registered land tells us? And she thinks it's a manageable project.
Absolutely phenomenal.
That's fantastic. Good work.
I think it will be a tremendous learning opportunity for students at the local universities to in any way participate. In the Minnesota case that I mentioned previously, they had a graduate program, that gave the people power to scan them and then do that labor, so.
Yeah, let me spend about 1 minute on more about deeds than you ever wanted to know. Deed descriptions tend not to change, and that's so that there can be title that is unencumbered and unchanged, and it's exactly the same piece of land because it has exactly the same description. It is unusual, it's certainly not unheard of, that descriptions of land are changed deed to deed, and they're made very specific and they're explained why, and you'll see that in recorded deeds. What happens, I believe, with regard to registered land is dealing with what it comes out of the United States Supreme Court decision in Shelley versus Kramer, which is in 1948. And Shelley versus Kramer decides that racially restrictive covenants are unconstitutional. Now, that puts an obstacle in the way of all those land use lawyers who want to say, I have to copy exactly the same description that I had from the deed coming in, and it should look the same in the deed going out. And what I think happened, I can't say, but what I believe happened, and we'll find out, is that with regard to registered land, that the descriptions didn't change, but instead on the deed itself, it's as the language, any racially restrictive covenant in this deed is illegal and without legal effect. So we may be able to find, that's why I was pretty excited to say, we might be able to actually find original language. I may be sitting here a month or two from now saying, sorry, we found nothing, but I think it's a really worthy inquiry.
I would like to now transition our meeting to an open floor format where commissioners can continue to describe any sort of announcements or projects that they have going, and we will also allow members of the community to engage with us at this point in these topics.
I just want to make an announcement, and I want to make sure the community has a chance to speak, but 2 revelations since the last met. First, I had a chance to not partner yet, but to serve on a panel with the Witness Stone Project, which is out of Connecticut. And those that aren't familiar with Witness Stone Project, it's really an incredible example of grassroots, community-engaged historical work and representation, putting markers inspired by Germany and markers in front of spots where people who were Jewish were deported around. The organization is a small organization, and they've now done almost 200 markers across the state of Connecticut. I think that this is an incredible opportunity for us to enhance the work that's already been done around research, because what it does, it takes it off the computer and into communities and spaces, each which potentially would have a ceremony, an opportunity for community to come together and learn about the individuals who were potentially enslaved in a physical location in Northampton. So that's the first thing. And to couple that with an ask, which I want to see if it's appropriate or not, but I'm very interested in having, and this goes to Marcia's point about community engagement, April 5th and 6th will be the third annual Power of Truths Conference. At the conference, I've already slated a panel on reparations that I want to invite commissioners who want to participate in this discussion to join. I don't know, again, we have to check the rules and make sure that something that's okay. Last year, I did serve on a panel with Tatish Netta, who is the lead political scientist for the report that we read. And so Tatish presented the same work last year at the Power of Truths. And so I'm looking forward to anyone who wants to volunteer to be on a panel that would at least engage the conversations, the challenges too, with the work that we've done. So I wanted to make sure we had a chance to mention that. And third, I've already been in touch with, I mentioned St. John's Episcopal Church, which I'm a member of, and they have in earnest begun looking in the stacks, looking for actual documentation around enslavement and racialized systems in St. John's Church. And I just want to encourage all of us, if we feel so moved, to see our own, community we have in Northampton, go and ask, is there anyone doing this work? Who would volunteer? 2 people, subcommittee, looking into these things to get this moving quickly, because otherwise, we don't have the capacity to go to all these institutions as a group. So 3 things I wanted to mention, and I'll open the floor for everyone else.
Jasmine, you would raise your hand, yeah? Thank you. Would you mind saying your full name?
And also at the microphone, perhaps?
Yes. Thanks, everyone. This is, I'm not used to this type of forum. Okay, where to begin?
Name?
Jasmine, Rochelle Goodspeed. Is that all?
Yes.
Northampton, Massachusetts, Florence specifically. Okay, so I think Historic Northampton is a huge boon to us because they have a ton, like you've been saying, a ton of research that they're already doing, and we've got the plays that are going up at Historic Northampton, which might be a great thing to jump off of. And I'm one of the playwrights in that. I can definitely talk to them with that. So we should connect about that because we have the discussions afterwards, and people are coming to those plays. They sold out last year, and they're coming back this June. So we should absolutely hop on that because they already talk about enslaved people in Northampton. Through Rose and Jonathan Edwards, and then Lydia Mariah Childs and the work that she did. And then also in regards to reparations, it can be really hard to get people on board with reparations, especially when they have to donate something to it. Speaking from experience, having worked on this for a very long time as a Native person, and having gained many reparations, there is a way to do it. What I've found is that people need to feel like they're gaining something from it. And that sucks, but that's what works the best. There was a guy who gifted us some land in Petersham, and when he did that, he brought a whole news thing. We told him, no, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to have our own closed ceremony. And that happened. And so there's a whole, people want to feel like they're doing something, that they can pat themselves on the back. And that's their thing to work out, why they feel like that has to happen for them. but reparations are super important. And the more that we can work together on that, I think the better. Then I lost the last thing. I was trying to tally them, but thank you.
That's great. Yeah, it occurs to me that those are the sorts of, that's a sort of timeline that we're looking for. Definitely ask this of the NRC members, and I know Andrea said she'd consider it, and I'm assuming because we haven't heard back that that's been a no, but it's an outstanding task that we need someone to take on to put together a timeline of recent lectures, educational events, and arts and entertainment events that help us substantiate the actual amount of engagement. That's a measure of the community's engagement. That's a measure of the community's will to have the question of reparations considered. And it's for someone to take up because it's completely possible for them to do it. Historic Northampton has an event scheduled for April the 9th at the Unitarian Chapel Meeting House right here. And it will be a talk, a very enlivening talk about the master-slave husband-wife relationship that happened right here, and also the history of Ellen and William Craft. There will be a historian on site to show us actual garments from fugitive slaves that passed through this area. And so I just wanted to articulate that that's an event that you will want to come out to. It's on April 9th at the Unitarian Meeting House. I believe it begins at 6:30. And I'm happy to send out more information about that. Yeah.
Could I request clarity? I remembered my last thing. Since I don't really know this realm, forgive me. Are we allowed to do things?
You are allowed as a community participant to come to our meetings, to speak during public comments. You are allowed to submit to us information that you think that could be helpful to our.
Okay, so if you had things that you wanted help with, we could say, I'll do that.
Yeah, you could.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
We need, in fact, I think we actually are, we need this. We need community involvement. We need people to do research, to bring things to us to eventually go on. Whatever our capacity is on a small scale will be amplified by 100, 10,000, I don't know, as many people as possible. So.
Tom and then Felicia.
Tom Wiener, lived in Northampton. 3 quick ones. First one, the cost of inheritance. I would love to see that be a community event. It's incredibly educational. Things that didn't get mentioned were that they were showing a variety of reparations. It wasn't just money, but they had land. They showed the black farmers and gave the history of that. They talked about institutions. They talked about Georgetown and the Jesuits. So it's a comprehensive educational film, and it's an hour long, and it would be cool to have a panel of commissioners after it, because we need to make sure that the people in Northampton are getting the information about why reparations are needed. And these educational tools are invaluable. Super happy to hear that the schools are going to be coming to the commission. Really, really excited about that. Super glad. It was that Jeremy is who he had. Thank you, Jeremy. Big time. Healthcare. I'd love to see something getting investigated around healthcare and all the discrepancies that exist there in this community. And last thing, I mentioned this before, Smith College students. Don't do all the work yourselves. Either the Smith College students or UMass, there are students that, grad students or regular students who professors could tell you, these young people are ready to serve, and for free. So that's it.
Felicia?
In alignment with resources, tools, and practice, I'm thinking about the connection of reparations and why white folks and white leaders should and could develop their anti-racism skills in opening spaces. I do want to offer an opportunity for white leaders that are committed to moving to the next level in terms of personal and organizational equity work, an 8-week anti-racist skills building course, development course for white leaders. I have shared this in the past. We just had our winter cohort, and we're coming up for our for our spring cohort, and I will send information if appropriate for folks to check that out. This is a space where there's reflection, there's support, and action-based frameworks that are intersectional around challenging white supremacy culture, and I think it could be really beneficial for those that identify as white and are doing this work.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to really celebrate Felicia's work, because I think that what goes probably under-discussed is the fact that everything that's happening in Northampton as this commission is being held is a part of the culture of this commission, and I'm certain that we're going to ask Felicia to draw up a passage talking about the importance of anti-racism training and the different availabilities that have been offered to white community members, and that is a part of what we're doing as reparationists. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that in Amherst tonight, they considered a ceasefire resolution. You went, Tom. Tom went 5 hours long for the resolution. Did they vote to accept it? So,
for 1 or 2 abstentions. That's really incredible.
So Amherst did pass a ceasefire, a recommendation for a ceasefire between Gaza and for fighting in the Gaza Strip and hostage return, which is again which is really an example of the sort of work that we are also immersed in. Big challenges. Thanks, everybody. See you next month. Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All right. I'm going to call the roll. William Newman.
Yes.
Felicia Lundquist.
Yes.
Garrick Perry.
Yes.
Jeremy Baker Paquette.
Yes.
Marsha Morris.
Yes.
Usman Power Green.
Yes.
Sarah Lynn Patterson, that's me, yes. Rachel Naismith.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you. See you next month. Take care of everybody.
I got a